Session blood.
Alright, sorry, I just love the intro so much. I had to do that. But anyway, welcome back everyone to Session Blood, EP06. And of course, it's Crucible the War, it's spoiler season. Everything's been shaken up. It's going crazy.
Oh yeah, we're gonna cover every single card today. No, just kidding. That would be
Oh,
impossible.
we'd be here all night.
Yeah, I just want to say Crucible has already blown all my expectations, and it's not even all spoiled yet, and I'm already scrambling trying to figure out what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's so many different cards, so many different archetypes that are about to show up. And I know that you wanted to say a few things about just how the metagame might change generally rather than class by class before we begin.
Yeah, so I think obviously each class is getting a lot of really awesome options and a lot of different options. And I feel like from the developers, we're seeing a pattern where they're really encouraging each class to build up this one massive turn throughout the game. This kind of like, I think we're going to see a lot of these kind of setup decks where, using these crazy pieces of the equipment, the Majestics, and the new Majestic cards themselves to set up, maybe five, six, even seven card hands and just do like a one blowout turn type thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Because things like the warrior chest plate, the runeblade chest, even
yeah, the Runeblade chest is probably, in my opinion, the most kind of. I just can't believe that card.
yeah, it's
It
one of the
looks
most
insane.
impactful cards I reckon I've seen so
Definitely
far.
most impactful cards.
It's
Yeah.
it's super cool. So yeah, and because I know there's a lot of cards that do seem to reward payoff. I know there was the brute card earlier today, which unfortunately I'm gonna have to track down the name for it. But the one that if you discard it, you sort of reveal the cards from the top of your deck until you
The Beast. What was it? Unleash the Beast.
yeah, because
Something like that.
things like that, and even some of the new ninja combo lines, things like that, the new Zephyr needle on ninja, like sort of that trade off. You can sacrifice a weapon to set up a combo chain. Um,
Yeah.
Lots and lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, but I also think because of this, I think, you know, we're gonna see decks that don't utilize as many of the generics that we've seen, almost every deck utilize in the previous roads. And one in particular, I just want to say that my prediction, I don't know, it probably is going to be wrong, but I think we're going to see a lot less of Enlightened Strike.
Yeah,
Just because there's just so many good options, class options for each class that I don't really see that card seeing as much play as it does at the moment, just
yeah,
because of that.
because Enlightened Strike, it's one of those cards that's really strong because of its versatility, because it can do so many things. But
Yeah, it gives you that kind of consistency, but it's not amazing.
yeah, it definitely,
It's maybe Ninja or Ranger, these kind of really aggro decks that love there's the go again mechanic, or decks that are setting up for late game with the put card on the bottom. You might utilize it still, but I think just wanted to say, especially to the new players out there, if you don't have a playset, don't worry.
yeah, because sometimes it's just a glorified red raging onslaught. Like you're paying you're putting a card on
Yeah.
the bottom of your deck to deal 7 damage.
Yeah,
Or
one of my friends, shout out to Antonio, who started playing, he's wanting to build a dash control deck. I just said, just put in red raging onslaughts. That's basically the same thing.
yeah, because I think what you're saying is correct. It's sort of you get that versatility and you get a bit of consistency, but you trade off the explosiveness of your deck for that. And I think for decks with really focused game plans, cards like even Command and Conquer and Lightning Strike, maybe sort of we might start seeing decks running say one to two of them rather than just auto
Yeah,
include three ofs.
absolutely. And talking about that explosiveness, that's what Crucible is bringing. Like, these cards are insane.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that pay off, but I suppose we can maybe start getting to look at some of the cards. But One thing we wanted to, just because there's so many cards and we were thinking about it, we'd be all night if we went through everything. We might split it
Yeah.
up and look at sort of do a few episodes looking at a couple of classes at a time.
Yeah, I'm keen to just drop episode after episode till Friday. So I was telling Kieran that we should just do one episode a day, just smash them out, maybe cover two classes per episode. But looking at the spoilers, I really want to acknowledge all the people out there who not only gave us these amazing spoilers, but gave it to us in such an amazing way. Like we've had videos, articles, and so much creativity from the community.
Yeah, and I know
Showcasing these cards.
there's a couple in particular I know you were keen to showcase, or give them a bit of a shout out.
Yeah, my favorite so far has to be Kashan and Adam revealing the wizard card. That was amazing. There's just creativity, essence of creativity. Also, actually, Peter, I believe, who did the Brute article. That was a really, really cool article.
Yeah, and I know Jesse and Aaron as well, who run the unofficial Fab TCG, the Instagram, and I know they also run some of the
Yeah,
media thing. I like Butter Media. I love
making us fab players look sexy.
I
Yes.
know it's great. I haven't had a good profile picture in months. They really helped me out. But I really enjoyed their one crossing over sort of basketball and fab, which are two of my big interests. But yeah, that's what I want to say. One thing I really enjoy about spoiler season is that, and one thing I think Legend Story Studios does really well is they use this as an opportunity to sort of reward and showcase content creators who contribute quite a lot to the community. Both in time and content and effort.
Yeah, and there was, so much awesome content, and I think it just really made the game pick up steam.
Definitely, just a couple I wanted to mention briefly, and I encourage you to go check them out. There was Red Zone Rogue, DM Armada, who I really liked the Ninja Reveal video that they did. Um, Fab DV, which is great for deck building. Like if you're struggling to find a site to make decks on, they're a bit of a go-to. And last but certainly not least is Tome of Oz, which is run by the one and only KP Michael, who was actually the person who created the first version of Flesh and Blood in the tabletop simulator when New Zealand went into lockdown the first time round.
Oh,
So
that was a godsend right there.
yeah, that was a lifesaver. That just I know a lot of the community really appreciate that. So I definitely just wanted to give him a mention.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention David Spencer, who dropped one of the Guardian rares, the biggest power up
The
ever.
Towering Titan.
Props on the Towering Titan. Props on the video, man.
Well, I suppose that kind of leads us nicely into one of the classes we want to look today, because we've decided today we're going to start off with Guardian and Warrior, which are two of the classes that have spoilers that I think are really going to shake up those particular decks.
Yeah. So should we start with Bravo maybe? With
Yeah,
Guardian?
let's do it.
First of all, I just wanted to say that when I first saw the new item, Sledge of Anvilheim,
The weapon? Yep.
yeah, I was a little bit underwhelmed, but then it grew on me, and now it's probably one of my favorite new weapons.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go through it? Because that's an interesting one, because I know a lot of people in the community, and myself included, I kind of looked at it and I was a bit underwhelmed. I'm thinking, 4 resources to attack for 6 with a hammer, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like Anathos in a way.
Yeah, so my first class that I played at the calling, and the first 6 booster packs I opened a plating, tectonic plating. So I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna play Bravo in this game. So I've had quite a lot of experience playing Guardian, and I've always wanted to play, an aggressive Guardian. There's been so many control lists out there, and I just found it to be a bit tedious and boring, even though it was probably the better deck. But I feel like this weapon really opens that up because previously with Anathos, you basically have to play 3 cost cards, 3 or more cost cards.
Yep.
With the Sledge of Anvilheim, you're kind of opened up to you're not really forced to do so. You can play things like I'm seeing things like Scar for Scar, Life for Life, a turn like pitch two blues, life for life,
Surge
make a
token.
seismic surge, and then swing with sledge is an all good turn.
Yeah,
And
and
I think it's and also it looks a bit clunky with that four cost to attack, but I feel like I really want to develop a deck that uses that to an advantage. You can pitch those cripplings, a blue and a crippling, to swing with the hammer. Um,
yeah, and I think
you can save those for later in the game, things like that.
and I think a lot of the time with Anathos, when you're hitting with that weapon, like ideally you want to be doing something like making a surge token and then hitting with the hammer anyway. So if you're
Yep.
spending at least four resources, then like you can just pitch anything, and it takes Guardian away from I think something you mentioned of being a bit too reliant on having to run those what I call triple threat cards, which they pitch for three, they block for three, and they cost three or more. Just because of the interaction with Anathos, those had particularly high value. And
Yep.
also one thing about this card is it's not a once per turn attack effect. Now I don't know how relevant that is going to be, but it definitely because I know it's very resource intensive, but I mean there's still a lot of cards left to be spoiled. Like who knows if that might play in some way as
Hey,
well.
like who knows? Maybe we'll start running flocks, make some quicken
Yeah.
tokens, start whacking with hammers multiple times. I think it really opens Guardian up, and I'm really excited about
Well,
it. I'm
things
I, I'm
like
pretty I'm pretty sure this aggro Guardian idea is going to be terrible, but I'm definitely going to give it a
yeah,
go.
well, Flock might be a bit hard to run, but even cards like Coax a Commotion, which can make a quicken token, like
Yep.
if you're dropping that at the end of a Guardian turn, like when you play who knows something like a Blessing of Deliverance or an Emerging Power, anything along those lines, um, if you get a
Yeah, and I've
Coax off
always
and
wanted to make Out of War work and Guardian, and I feel like something like Coax, you play Coax, hopefully they sink it or something, then you Out of War, give it +1, make a, or like Razor, probably not Razor, nah, never
but
mind.
anyway, we'll keep moving. We'll keep moving. but
Yeah.
so we've got Creativ, which is, I mean, I think the most important part about that is, I mean, it's actually the effect is you can pay three resources to give a crush attack +2. Now, like on paper, you kind of look at that and think, well, this is kind of just a worse version of Goliath
Yeah.
Gauntlet. And I think,
Yeah.
and I think there are going to be spaces for both. But the important part is that it blocks for two and has temper. So
Yeah.
that is potentially another three armor for Guardian, and I think that's just massive against decks that have strong on-hit effects. So things like Warrior and Ninja come to mind straight away, but also maybe decks
Yeah.
like Ranger that could see a bit of a renaissance, one might say.
Absolutely. And I mean, going back to making Out of War work in Guardian, I think you can do something like, pop this, maybe, I don't know, Cartilage Crush for 9 and then Crippling for 13. It pumps all of your
Oh, I
attacks
actually
with
missed that.
Crush. Um,
And a little
so,
interaction with
I mean, I feel like that's the only way to really gain value is if you pump two or more attacks, which is insanely hard to do. You're already spending three resources to use it, but hey, we can dream.
But again, it goes back to what you were saying about having big setup turns, because another thing is that a lot of people miss about Bravo's ability is that dominate effect applies to all attacks three or more for the rest of the turn. So
Yeah,
again, like you're probably going to need something like energy potions to get off some huge turn. But if you pay five resources, say you've got a couple of potions down, you crack two energy potions, you activate Bravo, pitch something to activate this. That means all your crush effects for the rest of the turn have +2 attack and have dominate.
yeah, that is an ability that is often
So overlooked.
forgotten. Is
Yeah.
that yeah overlooked? Yeah, and as a Bravo player, I think it was only a few weeks ago that you told me about it. I was like, oh, that could be really good with Last Ditch.
Yeah, last ditch effort. People remember that. Um, but yeah, so
Anyway,
I think that card we may even see it sort of like we're discussing when we were talking about Crucible the other week. Again, you could see Bravo decks running both Crater Fist and Goliath Gauntlet depending on the matchup for what you need. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, now looking at someone like the big ticket attacks, which is I think that's really what Guardian needed to sort of bring it forward a bit, because I knew a common complaint was that you have your Spinal Crush and Crippling Crush, but outside of that, you're not really that threatening of a deck.
Mm-hmm.
But now we see cards like Mangle, and Mangle is awesome. It's kind of like a personal favorite of mine. So that's the one
Yeah.
that the crush effect, if it deals 4 or more damage, destroy target equipment that has that person controls with a -1 counter on it. So
That's
immediately
great versus these temper equipment
amazing versus temper
decks.
equipment. It's great. Like obvious combo, I suppose, something like Buckling Blow. So now things even like a blue Buckling Blow is particularly threatening because if it gets pummeled, it
Yeah,
sets up a
turn one
Mangle.
buckling blow with dominate, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
Yeah, because like a red Buckling Blow on turn 1 with Dominate is that's 8 damage, I believe. And if they block with equipment, they're already setting up your Mangle, so you're feeling good. But cards like
Yeah.
that, yeah, with things like Temper, equipment, and I know people have pointed out that if against even decks you might not think it's as good on, if you get that Buckling Blow off against things like Ninja, you can put a counter on Mask, kill it with Mangle. Even decks like Wizard, for example, if you get a Buckling Blow, you can put a -1 counter on their Storm Striders. If you kill that with Mangle, that's massive. That really takes away their combo potential.
Yeah. That's
Um,
something that just has to be blocked.
yeah, so again, and the thing is, if people are using their big defense reactions, things like Unmovable and Mangle, then that's just setting up Crippling Crush and Spinal later on. On
Yeah, I mean that was one of the issues, right, with Guardian was that, if someone ran like 6 unmovables, they just save the unmovables for your 6 big threats, and then you're just forced to remembrance them back or just hope to win with the hammer. Um, so it's nice to see that variety of threats.
yeah,
And
and
I
speaking of
wouldn't be, I wouldn't be surprised just on that note that to see some Guardian decks that run quite low cost things like those Mangles, Spinal Crushers, and maybe just even dodge the
the
bigger
crippling,
threats.
yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that. And think speaking of Crippling Crush, something like Righteous Cleansing, which is like a new version of Crippling Crush in a way.
Hmm.
That's I know I like the fact that it pitches for yellow as well, so it doesn't feel as crippling. One might say if you need a pitch.
Yeah, and I love the effect.
The
I
effect
love
that
the effect so much.
that's so good against certain decks. I mean, I know it's hard to predict what's going to be out there with the new meta, but just think of it in the current meta game. Like you're playing against a dash player, you get this off and banish 2 chambers, or you're playing against a ninja deck, you get rid of like multiple whelming gust waves. There's so many
Yeah, or a
decks.
wizard and just banish one of their like key combo pieces or something.
Yeah, and there's so many. I think there's a lot of decks that are going to be running 9 of certain cards. Things like 9 Warriors Valor, 9 Gust Waves. Um, so I don't know the exact odds, but if you banish 2 key cards out of that, you're
Yeah. 5-0 to 60s for a stash is
yeah.
play.
And imagine in Blitz as well. Like that could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's
But
just
to be honest, like looking at the next one, I think that's my favorite Majestic
Stamp
for
Authority.
Guardian. I feel like this card is what Guardian needed, and it's just it's got that trifecta we're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh,
I love the
that's
art in
nice.
it as well. One thing initially I thought when I read that it had Go Again, and I was like, that card is absolutely broken. Um,
Nah,
but that is why I am not a developer on the team. But that card's really cool. So it's kind of got that Anathos effect. So maybe we see that more in the traditional style Guardian builds, where you've got to have 2 cards with pitch 3 or greater. So that's one. It's kind of got that Helm of Ice and Peak effect when you play it down. And again, that secondary ability of stopping attack action card triggers,
That's massive because it
massive.
just lets you take so many hits that otherwise you would have been forced to block. So,
Yeah, and it's good in the mirror. It's good against Ranger and Ninja, obviously. But it's also good against decks that run Command and Conquer. If you're trying to set up a big turn, you don't have to worry about the command. And
yeah, I mean, so many decks have on-hit effects these days. I think it's pretty much all of them except for Wizard. Even then, they run sometimes the Sunkissed Moonwish combo.
yeah,
Um,
and even little things like Life for a Life, just all those little things. I think that's a card that when you play against it, it'll sometimes like see more impactful than it looks on paper. Because you kind of look at it and be like, oh, it doesn't have Go Again. It's a bit annoying, but I
oh, this card looks insane to me.
yeah.
I feel like out of Yeah, it's my favorite out
I
of
don't,
all the Guardian.
I don't know. I'm just too used to beating you up on Ninja vs Guardian back in the Welcome Draft meta. I'm like, I just underrate these Guardian cards. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool.
What? I've already erased that from my memory.
um,
I've locked those memories away.
Now the next one is the one you mentioned that David Spencer did the video for Towering Titan. Now that's one that I think got sort of a mention on the FabTCG Twitter when they said there's going to be something that gives an attack action plus 10. Now I think a lot of people are saying the blue one's probably going to see the most play because it costs 9 resources, so you want to be able to pitch that away. But that's an interesting one for me.
10 damage, 8 damage. I feel like it's one of those cards that if you get it off, you're going to see some value. I don't think the cost of having a red just to get extra 2 is
absolutely,
worth it.
Absolutely.
But what I think it really, Guardian's one of those decks that sometimes you just draw a hand and you draw 4 blues and you're like, all right, well, this isn't that great. I guess I'm blocking. But with this, 4 blues, that's great. You just pitch 3 and play a Towering Titan, set up for next turn.
And I think the thing about Guardian as well, sometimes Guardian, it's you can just get these great starts where you build up a massive lead where, everything's going right. You're getting the Command and Conquer pummels, you're getting your Crippling Crushes with Dominate down. And then, like you say, you draw a hand of 4 blues and it just lets the other person pull back into the game because you can't
and then you have a really uneventful hand and
because I can see this when you build up a bit of a lead, you've got a couple of good turns off, and then like you were saying, you draw that 4 blue hand, and just being able to, like, if you've got something in Arsenal you can set up, being able to just pitch and set up a Towering Titan and be like, well, I feel like if I draw something good, I'm just going to take the damage next turn, and then on my turn, like Towering Titan with stuff like Goliath Gauntlet, like I'm going to give my attack plus 10, it's coming with Dominate, and it's going to hit you for heaps. Like,
not even Unmovable is going to help.
Because it's like a big attack with Towering Titan, like nothing is blocking that. Like, I know people are going to fact check me and come up with all these scenarios. I know there's a few cards that can, but generally,
there's that new generic, for example.
You're one of those people.
Well, actually, Kieran, you're wrong.
But I wonder how much play it might see, because I don't know if the cost is going to be too restrictive or not. I know some Guardian players are really excited to put 3 in the deck.
I think it's going to see a lot of play. A lot of lists. It's going to make a lot of lists, but is it going to see a lot of play? I don't know. I feel like it's one of these things like, I drew this turn 1 and I've got 3 blues,
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is as well, blues don't have to be great to replace cards, because Guardian runs things like blue Crush Confidence, blue Cartilage Crush, things like that. And just being able to replace your resource cards with resource cards that have strong effects, things like Stamp Authority and Towering Titan, even if they're not always effective, like having cards that are potentially effective that are also your pitch cards are really strong.
And just on that note, it's, you're replacing an attack action card with an aura, which means, against all these sabers and all these, there's a lot of,
your Heron's Flight?
These cards that kind of, Heron's Flight? That could help you block these things. I feel like a very minor thing, but worth mentioning.
Yeah, and that sort of brings. There's a few more Guardian cards we might go over quickly. Things like Chokeslam, I can see maybe in certain matchups. It comes to mind that stops ninja cards getting plus attack bonuses.
And I feel like these are the kind of cards that make or not make the card of your deck depending on the metagame in your area. If it's a really control-y type meta, you might play the Emerging Dominance. If you want to stop the warriors with go-agains and, you play the choke slams, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and things like Blessing of Serenity. Again, that's a card that's, I think, particularly good against warrior because it's an instant, so you get around reprise, which is really cool. Now, I believe the person who spoiled it, who we won't name, multiple Road to Nationals finalist top 8 player, thought it blocked arcane damage, but
I'll give Jacob a break.
To be honest, as soon as I read that card, I'm like, oh, it blocks arcane, and then when I saw people sort of calling him out, I was like, oh, that's right, it doesn't. but yeah, I think that these are sort of metagame specific cards that you either run for your meta or maybe you sideboard in in certain matchups.
Yeah, I have a feeling Chokeslam might see a lot of play. I think that's quite threatening to a lot of
Like,
decks, but yeah.
you're in the mirror that drop Towering Titan and you drop a choke slam with pummel. It's pretty sad. But yeah, Blessing of Serenity against Warrior, that's a big use I see for it. So I think that's kind of cool. Or even
Yeah,
Command and Conquer, you know.
play it versus an aggro wizard, and then they counter it.
But
Okay, I'm getting carried away.
But yeah, so that's. I feel we've covered most of the Guardian cards, and yeah, again, lots of like different ways to build your deck, and like brand new attack. So like it just means that a lot of time when you're building a deck, rather than just default, okay, I put 3 of this, 3 of this, 3 of this, and now I've got like 5 or 6 cards to sideboard. Now you've actually got options of what you want to do. What
Absolutely.
equipments, what attacks you want to run, and just things that can catch people out. Turn 1 Towering
Yeah,
Titan.
and just one thing I wanted to add is, Guardian's gonna see a lot more kind of fighting for that, the red pitch cards, because Guardian as a deck, it tends to run a lot of these blue pitch cards. Some lists run between like 40 to 45 blues, and then you have very limited spaces for the reds. So it's good to see a lot more options for those reds, and I think that's really going to affect which way you play the deck. Whether you want to stick with the cripplings, whether you want to squeeze in mangles, cripplings, and spinals, and just really adjust those based on the matchups. There's a lot of options.
Yeah, one final thing I just want to say is I like things like Creative Fist, I think, particularly impactful because I think we could see more tempo-based Guardian rather than having to play it purely control. Like things like you set up a Towering Titan or a Emerging Dominance, things like that, and then you're just like, well, I'm going to block with 6 for equipment next turn. I've got my Arcanite Skullcap, my Creative Fist, my Tectonic Plating, maybe even Iron Rot legs. And so you're just like, I'm just going to play all this equipment out to set up my huge attack, and then I'm just going to run tempo for the rest of the game. So,
Yeah, I mean, Creative Fist can set up some massive turns. Like, you could even do the buckling blow into Mangle, just drop it some time snaps in there. You could just do that in one turn.
all right, I guess I'm going to have to move us along because I know we can spend all day on these because they're cool, but
I could talk about the hammer all day.
but now moving on to Warrior. Now I think this is, I don't know, like some people are saying. Now I'm not a Warrior player, so sometimes when I see Warrior getting all these good cards, I get a little bit jealous. But it's kind of seems like
Yeah.
it's a big example of the rich getting richer. It's a good deck and it's getting a lot of cool cards.
Absolutely.
And I guess the only place
Rich
we
getting
can...
richer, I feel like that really fits with that latest Majestic being spoiled.
Yeah, true. I should have saved it for that. Damn it.
But to be honest, I've been, up till a few days ago, I guess, a bit of a Warrior hater. I've always found the deck to be quite linear, you just attack with weapon, wait for them to block. So I'm going to have gets.
Gotcha, reprise.
Oh, you blocked. Oh, reprise. But I see a lot of paths that the deck can take now. The Go Wide Warrior, which saw quite a lot of play even before these spoilers, is just gonna pick up a lot more steam now.
Yeah, and I guess we've got to start with the Centauri Saber. Just sort of completely changing up the game a bit.
Yeah, I mean, having 2 swords instead of 1 is ridiculous.
Because I suppose one thing, and again, it comes back to what we're talking about, limiting sideboard options, because I know the new Kasai Centauri Sellsword hero got released, who seems a bit more focused on running these sabers, but I mean, who's this? I don't play enough Warrior, so I'm not an expert, but I think we could definitely see Warrior builds even having 2 options, things like Dawnblade and Centauri Saber, or even just builds focusing fully on sabers. So when you sit down against a Warrior player, you're expecting Dawnblade, but then they go super wide with sabers.
That's really what I want to try out with the class. I've never really seen much interest in playing Warrior except for our crazy brew Warrior control. But now I might actually play the class. Like, this looks so much fun.
Because
like
the sabers, the sabers, combined with things like Courage, Bladehold, the new Warrior chest with Temper, which again I feel like a lot of builds may still opt to run the Tunic, but Courage of Bladehold, particularly in a Saber build, might even be better. Just setting up
Yeah,
those
it's another
huge.
one of those setup cards. It can if you're attacking with swords 4 times. I think you can attack with 4 times, right? Even more with Twinning Blade.
Three, I think. Oh wait, no, yeah.
Because
But
if you go like
with things like Twinning Blade, you're
driving
right.
blade or something.
Yeah, because if you have the action points, setting up a big turn with Courage of Bladehold, things like Flock of the Featherwalkers or Coax to set up Quicken tokens,
Mm-hmm.
then you can just set up huge turns. Like you sacrifice the Courage of Bladehold, all your Sabers are attacking for free this turn. You combine it with
Mm-hmm.
things like Glint and Twinning Blade, Flock tokens, and you've just
Yeah,
got
and even biting blade. Like whoa.
yeah. So I
Biting blade actually makes sense now when you look at the card.
yeah, because it kind of seemed like a bad version of the new card Out for Blood, but now there might be a bit of a use for it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so cards like Twinning Blade, which you just mentioned, so it lets you attack an additional time with a sword. And first glance, you might be like, well, you still have to have another action point, so it doesn't seem amazing. But I think it is really cool in combination with things like Glint the Quicksilver and Driving Blade, where
Mm-hmm.
attacks that sort of, or things that inherently give the weapons go again, but you kind of need to hit to get that Dorinthia ability to attack the second time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, but like at the moment, you attack for 3, your opponent doesn't block, and you glint the Quicksilver, and they defense react, and you're like, wow, like sweet. No,
Awful.
I can't do much. Like if you go glint plus Twinning Blade, that just sets up a second attack they have to use for the turn, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and yeah, we spoke a bit about Unified Decree before about a potential kind of reprise heavy list, and we talked about Dauntless as well.
I suppose if we
But
just
for me, Hit and Run is the MVP. I love that card. It actually makes me want to go, Warrior looks cool. Alpha Blood as well, actually.
yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, if we maybe just look at Dauntless quickly for people who didn't catch last week, just yeah, I think that really changes the dynamic of trying to block Warrior and not trigger Reprise. Um,
Yeah, and it really punishes people for going way too heavy on defense react. If you're running like 10, 15, you're going to get punished.
yeah, because having to pay 4 for Unmovable or even 1 for Sink Below or 2 for Steel Blade Shunt, things like that. I know Ranger got some new traps, having to pay 1 for that. It's just, yeah, it really makes you kind of
Oh, damn,
reassess.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah, so I think it makes you reassess how you're sideboarding and what your game plan is for Warrior. Like, if your whole plan is built around using defense reacts to shut down Reprise on their big turns, Dauntless is a card that really, I think, punishes you a bit for trying to do that, which is cool.
Yeah, and also Spoils of War. What is going on?
Spoiled. Oh, yeah. What a card.
What's up with that? That just blew my mind when I saw it. I was like, oh my goodness. Now we're getting copper tokens. It's a thing. This game is evolving real quick.
Yeah, because that's the card that I feel I looked at it before, because they released that before copper tokens were revealed. And I think that's a card that's just good with or without copper tokens. Like, effectively, it's like, it's a yellow driving blade, but for 1 less resource, which is really strong, I think, particularly in
Oh
Wario.
yeah, because I thought it doesn't even have to hit,
No,
eh?
it doesn't have to hit, you just immediately gets going in and
What?
+2. Like,
Wow.
yeah, because I mean, and you might think, well, it's a yellow driving blade, it only costs 1 less resource, but I think in Wario, where every resource matters so much, that 1 extra resource you saved means now you're getting through a Stroke of Foresight, or an Out for Blood, or a Singing Steel Blade. Um,
Yeah.
and again, it just sets up like these turns where if you want to run on-hit attack action, things like Coax Commotion, or even, one Command and Conquer, things like that, it really changes
Mm-hmm.
the math, because now they pitch a blue card, attack with a weapon for 5 with this, and you're thinking, like, if I block for 2 and they pump it, I don't have the defense react, it's coming in again,
Mm-hmm.
with Brave Force Bases and more pumps. But if I overcommit and block, are they really going to punish me on the follow-up attack?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I mean, what's your take on these copper tokens?
I'm not sure. Like it seemed a bit more geared towards Kasai, like the Centauri Sellsword, which actually I think the ability creates copper tokens as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there was also that card
Cash in.
Cash
So
Ins.
cash in is a yellow generic action. You may destroy 4 coppers, 2 silvers, or 1 gold you control rather than pay its resource cost. And it draws 2 cards, go again.
Yeah, and that's so it costs 4. Um, so
Yeah,
it
I
costs
think
4.
it's
It's a
a card
yellow.
you wouldn't want to cast for its
Oh,
non
absolutely
copper
not. But
cost,
but I'm wondering.
non coin cost.
I'm wondering if we might see warrior builds. I mean, it probably depends on if there's more things that make copper tokens. Um,
Yeah.
because
And I
cause,
really like this whole mercenary thing going on, you know? Warrior as it's been too clean for me, you know? It's just been this kind of like noble thing, you know, and noble warrior with a sword. Now it's a bit more grungy,
yeah,
more my style.
yeah. Because I think it would be really cool if we see if there's maybe more things to make copper tokens as well. If we might even see warrior decks, even Dorinthia warrior decks running like one cash in.
Hmm.
And just having that set up, and I mean, if Spoils of War is the only thing that can make copper tokens, then that might not be viable. But if there's even 1 or 2 more cards that can make copper tokens, having things like cash in, like if you get the setup and you've got 4 copper tokens down, or even two copper tokens is probably pretty good. Like pitching a card and you
Yeah.
draw 2 with go again. But yeah, like the dream situation where you play that for free, draw 2 with go again, like that's probably winning you the game. So.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the last couple of cards I definitely wanted to have a look at. I guess we mentioned Hit and Run. Maybe we'll come back to that. But Out for Blood,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
Out for Blood, just more sort of warrior focused
Yeah, and
builds.
it's I didn't realize. I mean, it pumps your next attack, so you could swing with a pursuit, you could swing with a command for 7, pursuit for 5. You know,
Yeah, because
um,
I think we might even see warrior builds.
out for blood and then into a coax
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly. Things like Coax of Commotion, those strong on-hit effect ones, because N5 is a magic number, you can't just sink it or use a 4 cost defense reaction. It's kind of
Yeah.
and against warrior, like you kind of don't want to use give away your equipment too early. And so if we
Hmm.
see warrior builds running things like Life for a Life, Out for Blood, Life for Life for 5,
Maybe
Coax for
even
5,
snatches will make a comeback. You know, snatching
possibly.
for 5.
I feel like Coax maybe has a bit more versatility than the Snatch.
Yeah, yeah.
But the good thing, Out for Blood, I love that as well because just another level of making warrior difficult to block because on rather than something just like Razor, if Alpha Blood hits, it means your next attack. I think we mentioned last time is you're attacking for 4 without having to use Brave Forge braces. So we're just seeing
Hmm.
warrior sort of get the advantage of these really resource efficient cards. Things like Spoils of War saves your resource from Driving Blade. Out for Blood save your resource from Brave Forge braces.
Hmm.
So it's like because I know warrior sometimes you get stuck with these like red heavy hands or like 1 yellow, and you're like if only I had 1 more resource. And I think these cards kind of really help out with some of those things.
Yeah, what do you think of Hit and Run? Because the first thing I thought about is Sharp and Steel when I saw this, and I just did a direct comparison, and I'm like, if this has a bit harder to pull off, but if you do, it looks really strong.
Yeah, because I mean, I quite like the versatility there because I feel warrior sometimes you lack just giving straight up go again to some of your weapon attacks because like I think when you're playing against warrior, it always sucks like when you're like you've got quite a good hand, you're like okay, I'm happy taking a bit of damage, and then like red warrior's valor, and you're like okay, I guess I'm blocking
Hmm.
this turn, like So
Yeah, and then it's like a poor man's glint as well, if you needed to be. Um, so I mean, a blue Hit and Run.
I think the blue one actually looks quite strong.
Yeah, because a blue Hit and Run, you can just drop it, and it's like a glint without the draw card.
Yeah,
Um,
again, it lets you use hands that aren't that good because of resources. It really lets you put the pressure on. Because I'm thinking hands where you've got a counter on Tunic, 1 card in Arsenal, 1 card in hand, and you go sharpen steel, hit and run, use tunic, swing with weapon. Actually, no, then you can't swing a second time, but something like that. but
Something along those lines.
well, like picture low, but something where for 2 resources you can attack for 6 with your weapon, which has go again already built in, and then you've got the 1 resource up for something like a pump or to swing a second time if they don't block it.
Yeah.
And even just in hands where you need to give something go again, it's kind of got that Brave Forge Braces ability tacked onto it. So, I suppose not in Dorithia, but because for the bonus you have to attack with a weapon already. But things like Coax of Commotion, Command and Conquer, if you've attacked with your weapon, and actually the more I think about it, it does seem built towards a Centauri Saber build, doesn't it? Yeah. I'm trying to make it work with Dawnblade, but it's not working.
You just read it a few times and you're just like, can I make it work with Dawnblade? No, not really. But yeah, I feel like it's kind of like the sharpened steel for the sabers, right? Like the kind of in between. You'd play it after swinging with one of your sabers, and then it just pumps your next saber attack.
Yeah, I mean that seems really cool with sabers because you get 1 weapon attack through, and then the next one I can see the red one even in that build, and then suddenly it's like a sharpened steel plus like a warrior's valor for 0 cost. It's like I'm attacking for 5 damage with automatic go again on my saber, and that's going to be followed up by a Coax of Commotion or anything along those lines.
Yeah. Man, Coax of Commotion is such a cool looking card. I think it's going to see a lot of play.
Yeah, well, I guess that kind of brings us towards the end of the classes we've looked at today.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm actually excited to play every class. Maybe except for Ninja. I've never been in it to play. But hey, I might give you some good old Ninja insight on the next one.
Yeah, so I think with planners we'll round out Welcome to Rathaeros next week and look at Ninja and Brute. Arc Smash, big card I love. Controversial card, but
spoiler alert: it's not my favorite Majestic from Brute.
Yeah, so because I think Ninja got a whole bunch
of card, but yeah,
Ninja got a whole bunch of new combo lines. Brute got a whole lot of more interactions with Intimidate, 6 power cards, and who knows, maybe we'll even have a couple extra spoilers to talk about. So yeah, I think, was there anything else you wanted to mention, or are we sort of rounding it out about there?
Yeah, just really cool to see, multiple decks per class, multiple strategies per class.
One thing content creator I forgot is How Could I Metrics Daily. I know they got a few spoilers as well, which is I think really developing into a bit of a landing page for articles and supporting the ecosystem. So
shout out to Logan.
Shout out to Logan. Sorry, mate. Was meaning to mention you earlier, but I knew something was digging at me. All right. Well, I guess that's us for tonight, and yeah, stay tuned because we'll be doing this all week to try and get you prepared with some sort of ideas and inspiration for the upcoming Crucible of War metagame once it gets released.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited.
I'm hyped. I can't wait to crack open my boxes.
Whoever's going down to Nelson, there's going to be a road to nationals there. I mean, it's going to be crazy.
I can't wait, and I'll be there Friday morning to pick up my boxes, and I'll be cracking packs. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and tune in tomorrow when we go through Ninja and Brute. And see you then.
Sweet. See ya.